Welcome to the podcast Emotional Intelligence, your greatest asset and key to success. I'm your host, Dr. Jami Carlacio, coming to you weekly from the Greater New Haven, Connecticut area. As a positive intelligence, or PQ coach, I'm committed to helping people develop a mindset and an approach to life that regards problems as situations that help us learn and grow. Mental fitness is like a gym for our mind. The more we work out, the stronger we become. That strength is our inner sage. PQ is a way of being and doing in the world that enables us to develop and sustain a positive relationship with ourselves and others, at home, at work, and everywhere in between. Please subscribe to this podcast and tap the like button, making the podcast visible to more people who can enjoy the benefits of PQ. And now, here's the show. Hello and welcome everybody to the second podcast in the series on awareness, acceptance, and action. Last week, I gave you an overview of positive intelligence and I explained a little bit about the judge and the saboteurs. Today, I want to take that into a little bit more depth, and then I'm going to give you an anecdote or a short story to exemplify how the judge mode and the saboteur mode works in a friendship situation, in a personal relationship, and how you can change all of that when you apply the sage mode and when you go down that neural pathway. So just again, the judge judges ourselves, judges others, and judges circumstances. So we often judge ourselves by telling us we're no good, or we lack the self-confidence to do something. Oh, you can't do that. And, oh, don't you know what they think of you? You're not welcome here, or whatever. My judge gets busy all the time, but through positive intelligence, I have learned to say, oh, hello, judge. Thank you very much. You can go in the corner now. I've heard from you, but I no longer have to think about you. And as soon as we do that and we turn our attention to the sage mode by doing some PQ reps, and I had mentioned doing things like going to the PQ gym, rubbing your fingertips together and feeling the ridges, breathing, noticing sounds. Anytime you can take your attention away from the judge, you are literally changing your neural pathways because you're no longer traveling down that well-paved road. You're going to let it overgrow with weeds, and you're going to travel down the neural pathway, or you're going to build a really strong neural pathway to the sage mode. The other thing is the judge judges others. We often probably find fault with somebody in our lives, or somebody we've met, or even a casual acquaintance or someone at the store who maybe didn't wait on us in the way we wanted, or whatever, So maybe a clerk was having a bad day, but you experienced it as somebody being rude to you and you maybe took it personally. I don't know. Some people do that. And I know I've been guilty of doing that too. So we judge other people. We decide whether or not they're good or bad, or likable or not likable, or even just if they did a good thing or a bad thing, or whatever. It can be anything. I mean, this can be judging somebody on their level of cleanness, or have you ever gotten into a car that is dirtier than the one that you drive and that you're used to, and you think, oh, what a dirty car. Well, there's your stickler coming into action and your judge coming into action. And then we judge circumstances. We judge everything from the traffic to the crazy driver that just cut you off to, the weather, or just things in general that seem to prevent us from having what we want, or giving us something we don't want. And that becomes problematic. So our judge has 3 different levels, and sometimes they operate all at the same time. And that just spells bad news for us. So then the judge has 9 accomplices. The first one is the avoider. The avoider says, no conflict at all costs, avoid the conflict. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to be in it. I'll just pretend it doesn't exist. The avoider is also guilty of procrastination. So I have an avoider like that, and I will put something off thinking I'll do it tomorrow. I just don't feel like doing it today. And then tomorrow comes and I may not actually do it. So the avoider can put things off and put things off and put things off. And what usually happens is there are consequences when we put things off, especially if there are due dates or people are expecting things from us. So together they operate to really kind of close us down and not deal with things. And obviously that can have a lot of repercussions. The pleaser is one of the avoider's best friends. So if conflict occurs, let's say in the workplace or in a friendship, the pleaser wants to make everything go smoothly. You know, don't upset the apple cart. We want to sail on smooth waters, and we don't want to put a wrench in things. So the pleaser just wants to make sure, you know, I want to be liked. I want everyone to just get along and be happy, and let's just go with the flow. Well, the problem with that is sometimes the pleaser ignores the self. So for instance, if I want to go along with somebody just to get along and not be the odd person out, I might be suppressing the things that I value. I might not be in alignment with who I am and who I profess to be. And so that can really work against us. So the hyperachiever can really get the best of us, because the hyperachiever is the person who has to do more and more and more and get another degree and another degree and another certification and have certificates on the wall and have accolades and awards. And the thing is, the achiever or the hyperachiever believes that those accolades and those degrees and those certifications and those awards are what makes the person the person. But in actual fact, the hyperachiever is never going to get all that it wants. There will never come a day when the hyperachiever says, I've done everything, I feel good. Because what's feeling good is all those external things. And those external things are basically ignoring that inner sage, that inner self that is already and always good, right? We were born in a loving, environment. So it isn't about, how many things I've done that makes me a good person, or how many, things I've won that make me valuable. It's just me. I know when I was teaching, I would have a less than pleasant teaching day, and I would assume I was the most horrible teacher on the planet. And I didn't ever consider that there are students in the classroom who may or may not have been prepared, who weren't ready, didn't feel good, had a bad night, whatever. And so I just took it personally and figured that I must have done something wrong. So my hyperachiever was attacked and my judge was busy, and it was horrible. It was really horrible. When I stopped equating my ability to teach a class with who I am as a person, I've experienced a lot of freedom. The next accomplice I'm going to talk about is the hyper-vigilant one. The hyper-vigilant one is always waiting for the other shoe to drop. All right. So things might be going good right now, but just wait. Because if I start saying, yeah, things are fine, something is going to happen in the next minute that isn't fine. And so the hyper-vigilant person is always dealing with the wreckage of the future or the wreckage of the past, as a friend of mine says. So never just standing in the present. So the sage would say, wait a second, I'm not going to listen to the hyper-vigilant person and live in the future that hasn't even happened. And I'm not going to live in the past that I can't do anything about. Living in the present means doing PQ reps, breathing, situating yourself. Where are your feet right now? Your feet are right here on this floor, unless you float. And so let's just stay right here in this moment. And as soon as we start traveling to an imaginary future or a past we can't change, we've already, sabotaged ourselves. And then the judge can always kick in and help out. The next one is the the hyper-rational. The hyper-rational accomplice is the person who says, this has to be logical and there's no place for emotion. So let's say you're in a team and you're making a decision. The hyper-rational saboteur will say, we have to have logic, has to govern every single decision we make. When in actuality, we are emotional beings. Emotions are part of what make us human. And moreover, most decisions, if not all of them, involve some emotion. In fact, some researchers have shown that almost, I don't know, majority of what goes into making a decision involves the emotion. So it's not something we can just pretend we don't have and pretend that if we just set them aside, everything will be fine. So again, a saboteur would completely suppress the emotions or pretend they don't exist. A couple others, the victim. The victim, now, maybe just a caveat first. Many of us have been victims. And so this isn't to say victim is always bad, because there is a reality that some of us may have been victims of various kinds of things. So maybe from our childhood when we were powerless and defenseless, maybe older as we got into adulthood and people did something or things did something and we were victims, victim of theft, victim of other kinds of violations. But the victim we're talking here as the saboteur is the victim who says, everybody is doing this, and why are they doing it to me? What did I do to deserve all of this? Or if she wouldn't do that, then I wouldn't have this problem. Or if he just did this, I wouldn't have to do that. So the victim doesn't want to take responsibility for what he or she is doing. And so that's the kind of victim that sabotages us, the victim that says everyone else is wrong and there's nothing wrong with me and I did nothing wrong. So the stickler is the perfectionist of the group. Stickler and the judge are also best friends because the stickler wants everything to be perfect, wants me to be perfect. And because I am a perfectly imperfect human being, that will never happen. In fact, I think the word perfect should just get out of the dictionary altogether, because as soon as we think we're perfect or we have to be perfect, we're going to fall short. And then we're going to start listening to that judge. So the stickler wants things in order and wants, not only do I want to be perfect, but even with my best attempts to not expect other people to be perfect, we do tend to hold ourselves to a higher standard and possibly hold other people to a higher standard of perfection. And that's just impossible. We're all different people and we all have different abilities and skills and attitudes. So problem, the stickler. And I don't know if it's dogged you, but it has dogged me in the past and it has been horrible, but I have moved beyond it now and I am grateful. The last one I want to talk about, no, two more. The restless one always wants to go to the new thing, gets bored very easily and says, okay, well, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm going to do this other thing. I'm going to do this other thing. And what happens is the restless person may not ever complete a project. So for instance, if I were to focus on just one thing, chances are I will get it done. But if I start thinking about what other thing I want to do and another thing I want to do, chances are I will do part of those things, but I will never actually complete those things. There was a wonderful article in the New York Times recently about how we are more efficient if we work on one thing at a time. And even though we may not get everything done on our 25 item to-do list for the day, we will achieve something. And in the end, we will achieve what we set out to achieve. If we spread ourselves thin, chances are we're not going to do everything to the best of our ability. So be thinking about that the next time you feel like you need to move on and do something different. Try to stay focused and do just the thing that's in front of you and see how that works for you. And then finally, the last one is the controller. I'm sure you've all experienced a micromanager. That micromanager is the one who wants to make sure everybody is doing exactly what he or she thinks they should be doing. And this might happen at the workplace. If you have to get this accounting just right and you have to make sure that this meeting went perfectly well, and if you can't do it right, well, I'll just do it myself. And say you're managing a team or even a book group, they have to do it, your way. Well, that's what your saboteur thinks anyway. And their saboteur tries to trick you into believing that. And so nobody really likes to be controlled. So they're going to resist, or maybe they won't at first, but they will later on. And as a mother of a teenager, I can say that he doesn't want to be controlled, especially now that he's getting older and he's learning to drive and he's getting ready to complete his last 2 years of high school. The last thing he wants is his mother telling him what to do. So controller has really no place in my life anyway, because it really can sabotage me. So now I want to just talk about a specific example of how some of these accomplices and the judge can really derail a friendship. So I'm just going to make up an imaginary scenario. So let's say you and a friend have decided to meet for lunch. You're going to go to a nice place and you're very excited and you're late. You arrive 10 minutes late. Your friend is thumbing their fingers on the table. There's a menu there. There's a basket of bread. There's a glass of water. And you realize that this person is upset. They're pursing their lips. They're shooting daggers at you with their eyes. And you're thinking, gosh, what's the big deal? I was only 10 minutes late. And, your judge is going on thinking you're overreacting and you're so sensitive. And your victim is saying, oh my gosh, why are you so mad at me? What did I do? So if you want to really keep the friendship and, your friend says, hey, I got to leave in 45 minutes now. I can't even stay the whole hour. Your sage mode would say, let's empathize. Let's put ourselves in our friend's shoes. Our friend has a very long commute to and from work. Gas is very expensive. The workday is long, and they have to fit things into their schedule in such a way that they can really be efficient. And having lunch is one of the nice reprieves of the day, but it's sandwiched in between some duties, work duties, home duties, whatever. You arrive 10 minutes late and you're thinking, what's the big deal? And your friend is thinking, now I only have 45 minutes to spend. And I did drive all the way here. And I didn't even know if my friend was going to show up. So in empathy mode, you think, wow, my friend has a right to be upset. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't even say anything. I just arrived 10 minutes late and didn't even think it was a big deal. And it wasn't really thinking about how my friend would feel or what was going on with them. So you can say out loud, wow, I'm really sorry. I was 10 minutes late and I didn't even text you or call you. And I realize now that that has an impact on the rest of your day, on how much time we can spend together. I really value spending time with you and I really care about our friendship. And I'm going to do my best never to let that happen again. And the friend all of a sudden probably relaxes and says, wow, I feel heard. I feel understood. I feel like she is getting it and she's taking responsibility for her action. She's not blaming anybody. So what could have derailed a friendship with negative pattern of judge and victim and whoever, now became a sage pattern where empathy was put to use. And that empathy then created perhaps a stronger bond and included maybe more lunch dates. So that's the kind of thing that, the judge mode, the neural pathway that sends us down the rabbit hole, and then creating this new neural pathway, this new neural way of thinking is sage way of thinking. And that's probably one of the most powerful things that PQ does for us. So not only am I not derailed with crazy thoughts, but I am holding myself accountable and I'm being a better friend. I'm showing up to my life and I'm showing up to other people. And as we go along in the next podcast, I'm going to talk about a relationship at work that also could have derailed had I not practiced PQ. And so that's all I have for today. I do want to leave you with this Native American parable, and maybe this will resonate with you. So there was an old grandfather Cherokee, and he was walking along with his grandson, and he says to him, a fight is going on inside me, and it's a terrible fight. He said, it's between two wolves. One wolf is the bad wolf. He's greedy, he's angry, he's envious, he's jealous, he's evil. He is sorrow, regret, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, superiority, full of ego. And he says, and then there's a good wolf. And the good wolf is full of love, is serene, is humble, is accommodating, is full of empathy, is generous and compassionate and faithful. And he said, there's a war going on inside you too, and with everyone. And so the grandson thought about it for a moment, and then he said, "Grandpa, which wolf will win?" And the grandfather said, "The one you feed." So this week, I ask you to feed your good wolf. Take care of yourself. Do a few PQ reps when you're feeling a little unsettled, and try to carve out that neural pathway that leads to the sage. All right. And my information is in the show notes. So if you are interested in learning more about PQ and working with me and how your thinking can transform and change your life, please click on the calendar link and set up a time, and we can meet for 45 minutes and see if working together is a good fit. And I invite you to connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. And until we meet again, I will see you at the PQ gym.